an AMI digital exclusive.
That sex show. Hey, Andrew, thanks so much for having me in your home.
Thanks for coming.
Can you describe yourself for us?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Andrew Jantzen. I use they and he pronouns. And I am a person with a disability. I have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it affects me in a number of different ways, but I use a power wheelchair, and I have support workers that help me with things.
So let's start with talking a little bit about Tetra Society. What do they do, and how did they get involved with sex toys?
Yeah, the Tetra Society is a national organization that builds custom assistive devices for people with disabilities. So if you can't find it commercially, that's where we come into play. So we got into the area of sex toys because the same reason we get into any other area of devices is that people requested it. We said, why not? And so let's try this and make it happen for people.
We worked on a project together.
We did. We sure did.
Right? Where we worked on adapting sex toys that exist in the world to better fit the needs of people with disabilities in the community.
Yeah, this project, I mean, it's still happening. It's been going on for a while now. So it's been interesting to see it that along the process. I think, I don't know, one of the parts about it, just to add this in there, is like, Tetra is all about trying to make space for people to explore things that are just for like fun and enjoyment, and allowing, not allowing, but kind of like creating space for people to submit their requests and ideas for something that's not just like eating, or like those things are important and they're really vital for people to have those devices to do basic needs. But we want people to also be thinking about, what is for fun and what's for exploration, recreation, what's for all of those things that give you joy in life. And this was one that was like, wow, this is an area where we can really give that to people.
Yeah.
And that opportunity, and kind of, yeah, that's been really great about the project, is just kind of, we spent so much time just talking with people too. Mm-hmm. I think that's been a cool part about the project, is that it's been about the devices, but also about the process, mm-hmm. and about just, talking about sex and about the things that are the barriers, the things that we want to change about that and explore and try differently, and what's going to make that easier and more inclusive to everyone in the process. And it's been quite an adventure.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it was really nice to just like get a bunch of us into like a sort of virtual space together and just like talk about how we felt about our bodies and like our access to pleasure and issues that we were having and like barriers we were facing, but what people were excited for. That was one of my favorite things we got to talk about, is like, what we're excited about, what we want out of this. And like, that was really nice. It was just like a fun little afternoon that we spent together talking about our bodies, and, with something that gets so like medicalized all the time, and something that can be pretty like, kind of a downer. It was nice to get into like a group of people and just talk about like things that bring us pleasure.
And the possibilities. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not just the things that make it difficult, but what are the possibilities with what we can do with that.
I know this from the work that I do, that there aren't necessarily like adaptive sex toys that exist on the market already. Like they never quite meet all the needs of the people they're kind of supposed to.
That's really the case. There's not much out there for toys that work for most people with disabilities. You don't need to have a disability per se or identify as having one to have difficulty using a lot of the toys that are out there. It's amazing when you think about them, and they're just really hard to hold, a lot of them. Totally. You're like, how am I supposed to grasp this thing to use it in the first place for most people? And then imagine having any kind of additional barrier, whether that's dealing with pain or function in your hands, or being able to see and interact with something in the same way. Not everyone experiences the same thing, but there definitely is overlap of people experiencing things around pain and around hand function, and just like the gaps in the devices, and thinking about how do we build adaptive handles for things, or how do we change the shape or the material of something so that you get a different sensation out of it, and it's not so like the vibration isn't so intense and rough. Like, sometimes those things are just too much.
Yeah, totally.
But how can we do that? What are the possibilities? Thinking about like mounting toys onto different mobility aids on a walker or a cane, or like using a power wheelchair to adjust things. there's so much that you can do with that once it's opened up. That possibility of saying like, it's not just okay to do that, it's encouraged.
Yes.
And there's so much that you can get out of it that, it creates this area that's almost, it's not like exclusive to disability, but you kind of have this thing that other people don't in a way that's like, I can use my mobility aids this way and other people don't have that. So you can own it in a sense and say like, this is part of me and my experience of this.
Absolutely. And like for me, sex toys have always been like in the same sort of realm as like mobility aids are meant to help us just like exist in the world a little bit easier, are meant to like help us do the things that we want to do or that we need to do and like in an easier way. Like I've sort of seen sex toys in this sort of realm of, like we don't have to call them assistive devices, but like they kind of are. Like
I think the idea of toys and sex toys already being a type of assistive device, that we don't need to call it that, but a device that aids in doing something to make it easier, they really are that already. Because the act of self-pleasure or sex, and however we want to talk about that, it's having it just in something extra that's an extra device that allows us to do that in an easier way. So why not make it even easier and make that for more people who can access it? Like it already is going in that direction.
Totally.
Why can't we nudge it there a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. And you were mentioning some of the barriers that people experience when they're trying to use sex toys, whether it's like disability related or just like sensory stimulation related. Like what kinds of devices have we been creating?
Yeah, one of the solutions that's been finished already, it's an adjustable handle that can be put on different types of sex toys, especially the vibrations of toys, both the sensation itself and then pain from that, and just being able to grip and hold something really tightly while it's vibrating strongly. That's a challenge for anyone. So one of the devices that was built was like a clamp with a handle attached to be able to put onto toys to hold them easier.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for having me in your home and talking to me about this stuff.
It's been so much fun. So thanks for chatting with me, and look forward to the next time.
Stream more AMI original content at AMI.ca.